Time to go on the mark with Father Mark Davis. Good morning, Father.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Doing great. How are you, Father?
Hey, you know what? To Pat's point about what kind of tone was that, it kind of reminds me, Dave, you're from Columbus.
Yeah.
So I could see you saying something like, does anything good come out of Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
You know
said
what
that.
I mean? Because
I'm
of,
sorry.
because of the football rivalry.
Yeah.
I worked with Richard Lane from Michigan, and he's always, kind of stirring up the Michigan-Ohio State
Right.
football rivalry. And I was just thinking, but is anything good? There's all kinds of contexts.
Yeah, right.
Like when there's football rivalries. Can anything good come out of there?
Right.
I was just trying to think of a modern concept that people always tease about that.
Yeah, and no one would ever say it, but it might be like if someone said, can anything good come out of South Bend? But we wouldn't say that, Father. So Father's a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah. He just hung up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lost him.
I have to say, though, I always said that I'm a student, not a fan. It's kind of like it's my school, so whether they do well or not, it's just, hey, it's still I'm an alum. I survived.
There you go.
That's all that matters. But it's interesting about this talk, though, about Nathaniel and where are you from, and it kind of bespeaks of last weekend's readings about allegiance. This whole idea of king is so different from our culture, because you again, being a democracy and very independent, this idea of having a king is really, really different, I think, for us. There's a story, believe it or not, about a court astrologer years ago who predicted that the queen would die the next day. When she really died the next day, the king wanted to get the astrologer killed as he thought he had purposely conspired to kill the queen to fulfill his prophecy. The guards brought the astrologer to the court, and the king asked him, "You seem to predict very well. Tell me, when are you going to die?" And the astrologer, with dead seriousness on his tone, said, "I predicted, no, Lord King, that I shall die 3 days before you, O great King of Kings." His life was spared.
That is good. That's
like
wisdom right there.
That is.
In preaching, yesterday, about this scene up at Caesarea Philippi, about who do people say that I am. Have any of you ever been to Israel?
No. No.
So I had the privilege of studying, there for 3 months. Wow. And we went up to Caesarea Philippi, which is way north, right, pretty much next to the border to Lebanon. And there is, when you go there, there's this huge rock. It's like a big steep kind of cliff type thing. And back in the day, it was known as the kind of the temple for the god of Pan, which was very much hedonistic, kind of wine, women, and song, or drug, sex, and rock and roll kind of thing back in the day. And there were all these niches for all these gods, not only of Pan and Zeus, and that kind of worship was people pretty much bringing sacrifices as bribes to get what they want. So it's a very kind of secular, kind of hedonistic kind of worship. And then there is a cave at the bottom of it, which was like a spring that they believed to be bottomless, which they said that was the entrance to hell, the gates of hell. So you can imagine the kind of things that went on there. And then, get this, 20 years before Jesus was born, the king of Israel, who was supposed to be a religious leader, built a huge marble temple in honor of Caesar, again, who made himself God, and everybody had to worship him. And then Herod's son, Philip, named the whole town after him. That's why it's Caesarea Philippi. So you've got all of this rock and all of this pagan, secular, and political worship, as Bishop Barron would say, of wealth and pleasure and fame and power. And Jesus says, that rock is not what's important, but it's Peter, the fact that you have the eyes to see that I really am the Messiah from God. That is what is really rock solid, is not things of this world, but of God's world. And there's a scholar of Bible named N.T. Wright who's really respected, and he has little books on each of the Gospels. And his book, the Matthew for Everyone, he points out that the Messiah, the Jews believed that there was going to be an anointed king to be able to free them and bring peace to the whole world, and that was the Messiah. And then most believed that it would be from the line of David and born in Bethlehem, and they didn't know for sure what he was going to look like, but they thought he was going to bring an army against the pagans and cleanse the temple. And for Peter to say those words out loud, it was important that nobody near Jerusalem could hear it. They were far away, because that was really a dangerous thing to say, that Jesus was king, when Herod was king and Caesar made himself God, and all of these gods, were fighting for people's attention. And it really was a powerful statement because of the setting. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense. I never thought of it that way.
And so,
yeah,
I think today there's a lot of things clamoring for our attention. And of course, any Christian, I'm sure, we're a baptized Christian. We want to be with Jesus and become more like him and do what he did. But I think the question is, when it comes to day and day, when I'm tired or when I'm hurting, do I go to prayer? Do I ask someone to pray with me or for me? Or do I eat ice cream, or have a drink or have a smoke or watch something, right? Mm-hmm. What do I do when push comes to shove?
Right.
And where are my allegiances? And do I really seek the living God, with all my heart, my soul, and love my neighbor as myself?
Yeah.
We're in constant training, or should be.
Yeah, and that's what discipleship is all about. It's got to be in every area of your life. It's like the air you breathe. It just can't be, something you might think about here and there. So that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very good.
Love it. And go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was
God
just
bless
going
you
to say,
all. Have a great week.
Thank you, Father.
You too.
As always, spot on, Father Mark Davis, on the mark.